Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. So Sunday afternoon, Indiana hosts Purdue. Kind of an interesting game for a number of different reasons. Indiana, as we know, is going through a coaching search. By the way, Mike Woodson, for all the criticism, has actually had a ton of success against Purdue. Purdue, coming off that national championship game, was looking like a Big Ten contender coming into the last couple weeks. They had dropped 3 straight coming into that one. And then they lose to Indiana. Final score in that game at Bloomington, Indiana, 73-58. Not great for the Boilermakers. Now, listen, if it was just about the Boilermakers losing or Indiana winning, I don't know that we'd be discussing this 2 days later. But it got interesting because after the game, Matt Painter was asked about his thoughts on the Indiana coaching search. Now, again, we're going to play a little bit of a long clip, but I want to be fair to Matt Painter. I want to play the full answer. Didn't love a lot of it. Some of it I understand. Some of it is fair. Some of it probably isn't. Producer Matt, play the sound.
I think you got to look at some of the common denominators here more than anything. I think that's an important piece right here. Like, don't beat yourself. Like, don't beat yourself. Like, let's support somebody. I got to try that out for once every now and then. When shit goes wrong, like whatever, you think Purdue fans are happy about what just happened? Like, you like, see, a fan base isn't the people that tweet. A fan base is the people when you're bleeding, they support you. Like, they jump in and off, they jump on and off things here way too much. Like, support your coach, man, support your players. Don't tweet negative things about them. Like, be supportive. Like, see how that works for you. But they build them up, like, and they overdo things. Like, quit overdoing shit. Just accurately, like, talk about what's actually happened. Like, don't, like, get, like, recruits and, like, that's Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. Then they come out of here. Well, they're not Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. They're good college players. Like, and then they build it up, and then they go, well, what's wrong? Well, they're part of it. But it's not their total fan base. It's just that everyone has a bad percentage of their fan base now because of Twitter. And then we think that's their fan base. It's not our fan base. It's not their real fan base either. And so I think that's an important piece. But it's hard for young people to hear all that and then go out and collectively play like, hey, man, we're playing for you guys, but you dog us when we lose, and then we're the best when we win. Well, we're somewhere in between, right? So, like, I think they need to learn from some of those things and support Scott Dolson and support the new coach and support the staff, but also kind of be grounded with everything. And they'll be able to, I think they'll be able to have success. It's just a different world now. We have 18 teams, right? We're going to go into the name, image, and likeness, and some changes are going to be made here in April. So to be real, it'll be.
So that was Matt Painter on the Indiana coaching search. Okay. And so a couple things. One, want to be fair to Painter. Think he brought up a lot of great points. First off, listen, I think the idea, the idea of, hey, support your AD, support the next head coach. Don't jump on the guy the first time he runs a bad out of bounds play or whatever, the first time he misses on a recruit. Okay. That's pretty universal. I get it. I think that's, fair advice. It's fair this, it's fair that. And I do think the point of that, yeah, every fan base has weirdos on Twitter, has mean people on Twitter, has negative people on Twitter. Again, totally fair, not going to criticize him at all. Same time, though, do have a couple criticisms that I do think are at least worth discussing. First of all, if you actually break down the rant, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because he kind of gets, let me even backtrack, okay? First of all, I'll just say this. In general, I don't like anybody telling fans how they should act or how they should support their team. And I say it all the time on this show, okay? Listen, I think there's some obvious ground rules, baseline rules, right? Don't throw things on the court if you're at the game. Don't post the coach's home address. Don't go after kids. Don't go after wives. Don't go after grandma, grandpa, whatever. No death threats. I think, okay, we get that those are things that fans should not do. But I never tell fans how to act, because every fan base is a little bit different. Every fan has a different opinion on how things should be run. And I do think that's part of being a fan. I think social media has given people more access, but I think it's part of the deal, and everybody just has to deal with it, right? We've talked about it on this show. Is a few weeks ago, Dan Hurley and UConn got booed at home when they were losing to DePaul at halftime. And people ask me, Torres, did the fans cross a line? I'm like, listen, I ain't speaking for UConn fans. There were fans that paid a lot of money that were frustrated with the effort and performance of that team. Dan Hurley actually addressed it after the game, said, like, look, fans want to boo. That's their right. We were not playing well. And so I'm not going to tell UConn fans that they shouldn't boo. I'm not going to tell Kentucky fans if they're mad with Mark Pope's rotation or whatever people are frustrated about in a moment in a game. I'm not going to tell UCLA fans how to act, Indiana fans how to act, Purdue fans how to act, okay? So that's one. Two, I'll also say this. I don't really understand what the argument is. If the argument is block out the noise, there are bad people on social media, so then just ignore the people on. What you're saying is ignore the people on social media. So you're saying Indiana has bad fans and you need to ignore them, but you're saying every fan base has them. So are we ignoring them or are we not ignoring them? Like, to me, it's a little bit confusing. Well, what's the message here? Like, I get that there are bad fans, but you're also saying ignore them, but only Indiana fan. I don't know. But here's the third part. This is the part that I want to talk about, because as everybody knows, and a lot of people probably actually don't know because we've added thousands upon thousands of new fans and followers to this show. If there's one fan base that sure is angry online, it is Purdue's. And all I will say is, Matt Painter, maybe you get your house in order. Maybe you get your fans in line. Maybe you get your fans to stop tweeting, because Purdue fans are wild, okay? And listen, I don't really care. I'm a big boy. I can handle all of it. But there ain't nothing that Indiana fans said about their team, about their coach, about their this, about their that Purdue fans haven't told Torres, okay? So for people who are new to the show, I was probably, certainly I think actually, the first person that really kind of went in on the Zach Edey foul stuff last year, a little bit out of control. And I'm not going to bring up all the old tweets and stuff, but it was after the Alabama game in December, and I kind of said it, and college basketball wasn't in the mainstream yet. And all I said was, like, I'm sorry, there's no player in college basketball or basketball history for that matter that's good enough to draw 20 or 30, maybe not 30, but 15 to 20 fouls on one end and commit 0 or 1 on the other end. That player does not exist. We're either calling the game physical on both ends or we're calling the game not physical on both ends, but there's no way that any player should be shooting 18, 20, 25, 30 plus free throws, which did happen last year, and the other team is shooting 8, 10, 12. And for people to say, well, big players, you can't guard them. Look at Shaq. Shaq was a 52, 53% career free throw shooter. It was strategically smart to foul Shaq. Zach Edey was like a 73, 74% three-point shooter. So the point I'm trying to make, I was a little critical early. By the way, there was a lot of things I did not say. I did not say anything about Zach Edey was only good because he's tall or this or that. By the way, I picked Zach Edey as my National Player of the Year, picked Purdue to play in the national championship game against UConn last year. So I've never really had any hatred for Purdue. But I will just say, Matt Painter, who has all the answers for Indiana's fan base, like I said, you got to get your fan base in line. I just want to read a couple quick tweets from our buddies in West Lafayette because I think it's pretty funny. I actually, the last time I tweeted about Purdue, I was kind of curious, like, can we bury the hatchet? Is it that big of a deal? Should we care? Is it over? Are Purdue fans still mad? So about 3 weeks ago when Purdue was actually playing well, by the way, it is kind of funny. Purdue all of a sudden doesn't have a 42-2 free throw advantage in every game, and all of a sudden they're struggling to win. But I bring it up because for fun, I went back and looked at the last tweet that I put out about Purdue. Producer Matt, if we have that tweet available, play it. Okay, so this was from January 31st. So this was about a month ago now when Purdue was playing well. I said, since Purdue fans think I never have anything nice to say about their program, let me say, Braden Smith is playing at about as high of a level as any college point guard can. 24 points and 7 assists tonight versus Indiana. This was after the first game. It was on a Friday night after getting 24 and 10 versus Michigan last week. So this was after the first Michigan game, January 31st. Remember where I was when I sent the tweet. I was out to dinner with my wife. We were at the restaurant, or the grocery store down the street has a bar, so we're kind of hanging out at the bar. Anyway, sent out that tweet. I was like, maybe we'll bury the hatchet with Purdue fans. Yeah, not so much. By the way, before we get to the responses to that tweet, if you are with children, if you are with somebody impressionable, if you don't want to hear any vulgar language, I would go ahead and just mute this for about the next minute or so, because you're going to hear some stuff. You're going to hear some words that maybe you shouldn't be hearing, depending on who you are. Okay. So, producer Matt, what were some of the responses to me saying, put simply, since Purdue fans think that I never say anything nice, Braden Smith is playing like an All-American? Boiler Burner 1 said, thanks, pussy. I don't know. Whoa. I guess I appreciate that. Remember, this coming from the fan base that Matt Painter was just lecturing, oh, people need to be nicer on social media. Thanks, pussy. Well, it didn't make Torres feel all good in the warm and fuzzies, but that's okay. But maybe once the responses keep going, they'll get a little bit better. What was the next one, producer Matt? Mature Boiler says, shut up, bitch boy. That's BOI, by the way. Doesn't seem very mature to me, but what do I know? I'm not from I never went to Purdue. I've never been to West Lafayette. Maybe that is maturity on West Lafayette. But here's the thing, right? I said something nice about the team. How mad could anybody possibly be about me complimenting an All-American point guard? What's the next response, producer Matt? You're still a douchebag of the highest order, ... from the franchise 021. For saying your point guard is your All-American point guard is awesome? Doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal to me, but what do I know? I think, do we have one more? I don't know if we do or not. I don't know. I think that might be it. Oh, Skinny says, keep sucking off Alabama and Tennessee. Well, I don't think we've talked much about Tennessee on this show at all this year because I find them like insanely boring. And Alabama's a top 5 team. I mean, if I talk about them too much, I apologize. But thank you to Skinny for that comment. So, yeah, that was Torres's latest run-in with Purdue fans. And by the way, last year was even worse. And for the record, I don't really care. But what I will say, it is a little bit hypocritical. And if Matt Painter is going to sit there and say, well, guess what? Every fan base has bad fans on social media. Ignore them. I actually agree with that. But then just ignore them. You don't need to bring them up. You don't need to keep talking about them. But if you are going to talk about them, Matt Painter, not producer Matt. I was going to say producer Matt. It's stuck in my head. Producer Matt's always been very nice to me. He's never called me a bitch boy or a pussy or anything like that, at least not that I'm aware of. Maybe he said it off air when I'm not around. Never called me a bitch boy to my face, though. I guess all I'm trying to say is, Matt Painter, listen, you want to talk about social media, maybe you start with your fan base. I think Indiana fans will take care of their own hire. I think your point about, hey, let the AD make the hire. Don't jump on the coach the first chance you get. By the way, it's kind of also worth noting, about 5-6 years ago, Matt Painter almost left Purdue because the fan base was getting negative. That's another conversation for another day. It was probably a little bit longer. It's probably about 8-9 years ago now. Matt Painter, get your house in order. Tell Mature Boiler to grow up. Tell Boiler whatever. I'm just saying. A little bit of hypocrisy there.